first of all, let me welcome you again, Artur. You are, okay, I read a lot about you and I'm very intrigued in what you do in the field of music and neuromusicology. So you are a professor in music-based therapies and interventions. You received your bachelor's degree in music, double bass and drums. You have a master's degree in musicology and music cognition. And you have a PhD in clinical neuropsychology with a specialization in clinical neuromusicology. And you're also a lecturer in music-based therapies and you write books. I don't know where to start. This is why I just told you I never hold my papers when I'm interviewing, but with you, there's so much that triggers me, what intrigues me, what inspires me, and hopefully the people that, you know, if we're going to share this conversation or not, we'll see. I just want to pick your brain. We've never met before, by the way, so this is the first time we're actually diving into a conversation together. This is so much of information already for people. So can you explain maybe in short, if it's possible, what is it that you do? What, for example, is clinical neuromusicology?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, first of all, Renske. It's amazing to have this conversation with you, and I'm more than happy for you to pick my brains. Well, in short, what is neuromusicology? It's the effects of music on the brain. Do you need it shorter?
No, I couldn't have said it better.
So we're really looking, what is music? So we look at different forms of music. It can be rhythm, it can be melody, whatever you want to pick. You know, it can be the whole piece. You know, and it doesn't matter which genre. You know, it can be from classical to electronic music, can be anything. And then we look what are the effects of that particular music on different brain areas, different brain networks, but also looking at emotions, cognition, and behavior. So how do they relate to a person? How do they relate biologically, but also how do they relate in how you interact with a certain person when it comes to understanding the music?
Wow. I think we have a lot of things in common and not at the same time. We come from very different backgrounds. I work in the electronic music industry mostly for 20 years. The DJ world, I call it as well in a more simple way. And you are, you know, you come from, you have a very different, you are actually educated in music, but also the thing that we kind of have in common is the clinical part and the interest in psychology as well, what it does to the brain. But you're the expert in that. So that's why, from what you just mentioned, basically about neuropsychology, what are some insights maybe that you can share with us that are worth sharing, that actually will stick to you know, that we can take with us?
Yeah, well, I mean, the take-home messages are always difficult when it comes to brain, to psychology, you know, because every individual is so different. You know, I mean, we are coming from a heritage of science, you know, which are the medical sciences, where we always tried to get big groups, huge cohorts, you know, of people and compare them to each other. The thing is, you know, the more we learn about the human predisposition, you know, us as a species, the more we learn that we are so different. Well, we all have the same sort of genes. We all have a brain, we hope, in most people at least. We all have kind of the same ways how our hormones interact and all those things, you know. But I mean, what differs is the good old question of nature and nurture. It's an age-old question in science, you know, and is it nature? So is it our genes, our body, our mind, everything that we get from birth that determines us how we understand a certain part, especially music, something very creative and very artistic? Or is it more the nurture, how we grow up, the culture that actually influences us? So a take-home message would be, you know, what we've learned in the past maybe 20 years at least, starting with all the brain scans and everything, you know, is that not every person is the same when we listen to music. We all listen differently. That results in having different emotions, different behaviors, different preferences in music. And another one kind of relating to this is that our whole brain is activated when we listen to music. So it's not just one part of the brain that says, oh, hello, here I am, I'm going to listen to music, and that's it. It's a holistic brain process. So this whole brain is active. For the back, left, right, center, everything is necessary to understand what music really is. And we're talking music listening here, not even music making, not even talking improvisation. So you need the whole brain. And from there, you need the whole body as well to understand what the music is. Because as human beings, and this is something from the past maybe 5 to 10 years, we infer our knowledge onto the outside of our body. So our brain makes this world up as we are seeing it right now, as well as listening to something. And we're looking for errors in this world. And if there's an error, our eye is drawn to it. And if there's no error, we just kind of continue. And that's how our body understands the world in a very simple manner. Same with music. So if you used to classical music and you only listen to classical music and you start listening to heavy metal, say, or electronic music, your brain will infer your expectations onto that music, saying, I recognize this, but hang on, there's a weird beat. I don't understand this. There's an electric guitar. I never heard that one before. So you and looking for those errors, and this creates an understanding of what music really means to us personally, because you could like something and I would not like it, for example, even though it's exactly the same piece of music, and we could disagree or agree of liking it or not. So the take-home messages: you need your whole brain, you need your whole body, and don't discriminate against any form of music because each genre has its beauty.
Wow. So actually the takeaway from this is listening to music is actually really healthy because you activate all brain areas. Is that too simple to say it like that?
It's too big to say. I mean, it's an assumption,
Mm,
I mean, we cannot say
mm,
that listening to music is healthy. There are 5% in the world that are amusical, which means when you
mm.
actually play music to them, they hear pots and pans, literally pots and pans.
Yeah.
Just go to your kitchen, open up the cupboard, and throw all the crockery out. That's what they hear when they listen to any piece of music. So, is it healthy? Is there a certain deeper understanding of music that could actually link to our health? Well, we don't know. We have those assumptions from science that we can see that there
Mhm.
is certain points where we can train our brains. I mean, the say, for example, a professional musician is not necessarily healthier in terms of brain structures than a non-musician. It's what you do with it. It's
Yeah.
it's like going to the gym. You can train every day and you can overstrain your muscles. You become very bulky and healthy, and you have a healthy heart. But is your predisposition as human being healthy enough to actually be healthy? So there are multiple concepts that have to be brought into it. What we can say, however, is that music can contribute to your health in a very significant way when in the hands of the right person.
Wow. Again, couldn't have said it better. This is why I speak with you today. So thank you for elaborating on that. What maybe this is also maybe put too simple or too simply, because I've read that, for example, electronic music, we kind of like it because it has the repetition in it, and
Mhm.
also our brain can kind of sometimes guess what's coming and sometimes not. Like there's something, and that's why it releases dopamine in our brains. Is that something that you actually know from research or from?
Yes, well, we know from research that any genre will release dopamine. So it's not just the electronic music. We know that the music that you are most familiar with, that you like the most, so that the music that you have been grown up with, will trigger the most dopamine. But not just dopamine, also norepinephrine, adrenaline, all those different hormones. And we know way too little about neuroendocrinology. That's what you call the field of hormones and brain. Overall, because we don't even know what aspirin does in male and female subjects. So I mean, we're still at the forefront of endocrinology in this day and age, thankfully. So what we do know is that every music will release dopamine. And if you listen to a piece that you really like, that has a certain emotional weight to it, a certain associated memory with it. I always use the example of your first kiss. Maybe there was a certain melody or music. The moment that I say that or tell people to remember the first kiss without a judgment whether it was good or not, just about, what do you remember? So there's a feeling. Maybe it's warmth, maybe it's shame. There is an emotion and coming straight to the fore. And if you listen closer, you maybe had a soundtrack, maybe you were somewhere and there was a music to it. So what it creates is an associated memory. So next time you hear that piece of music and you will recall our conversation, you may think of your first kiss with all the emotional topsy-turviness that comes with it, of course. But with the dopamine, it's absolutely correct. It's the dopamine that is released in our body And in order to make us feel happy about something, to make us feel kind of content and all understanding why we feel happy. So that's what the dopamine does. The difference here is it's not necessarily the repetition of a particular piece of music. I mean, it's pretty much there were two questions in one. So the dopamine can also be released when you are listening to a piece of music and out of a sudden your expectation is violated. So you expect something to happen.
Yeah.
Let's say in electronic music, and out of a sudden the DJ decides to do
Yeah.
then a new beat starts. You knew that it's going to come at some point, but you weren't sure when it's going to come, and you don't know what sort of different beat the person will play. So what often happens if you observe a group of people in this concert scenario of this DJ scenario is that you hear this rewind thing, which is rather 80s. I know, I'm sorry, or even 90s, but you can just kind of hear the transition to a new beat. And there's a split second of silence when the new beat starts before everybody starts cheering and jumping around. And you always recognize, and you said you've been a DJ yourself touring the world, I bet you have noticed that, the moment that you shift to a new beat, it's just a second of uncertainty in people. And then everybody's like, yeah, here we are. And that's playing with your expectations. And in rock music, the same thing, in pop music. So when you transition in a medley of different songs, the transition period always gives us 1 second. Do I recognize this song or do I don't? Do I remember the beat or do I don't? What is going on? As a listener, that is. And then you jump straight into it and you enjoy it. Classical music has done the same thing for decades as well. Gustav Mahler, one of the best examples, where he continues, even if you know the piece in and out, if you sit at a concert hall, Mahler's, I think it's the second, when he just starts with the double basses. And then he waits, and depending on the conductor, how long the wait is, and you kind of anticipate it, and you don't know what's happening, and then it's the bum, 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 and and then he kind of releases this dopamine, and it happens across all the genres.
Yeah.
Coming to your second part of the question about the repetition and why we seem to like a certain piece of music because of that, I wish I could believe that. It would be too simple to be true. It is true because we like repetition. I mean, because it's our cognitive mindset can be switched off. We can just enjoy what it is because we know what happens. We don't have to put any effort into it. It's just there. It's just overflowing us with information. But I don't believe that we as humans are that simple sometimes. I do believe that we like the repetition of it. We like the fact that we don't have to be cognitively engaged in every task that we do. But I do not want to believe that we can be reduced to a species that enjoys repetition and enjoys something that is simple for our brains, because our brains want to be challenged. Our brains don't want to be simplified. They need the challenge in order to grow, to develop, to have new experiences, to understand our own development in this world around us that is changing so much faster than our own evolution can ever catch up with. So I mean that's kind of how I look at it. So a very long answer to a very short question, but and you have to stop me if I get too excited because I can babble on for hours.
But we have around like 35 minutes left of our time, but I think I can spend hours picking your brain on this because like every word you say is interesting to me, because I also like to challenge the things that we always tend to believe. And maybe some things aren't proved yet or will never be proved, with studies or anything, like, with the 4 to the floor beat. That is, we always come back to the African tribes with the drums, and maybe that's why, and we come together, we gather around a DJ playing. This is basically, that we use a lot as a metaphor as well in the electronic music industry. But I think what I hear you say indeed is the repetition, could be kind of, we don't know if that's the thing. Basically, our brain wants to be challenged. And the anticipation, it plays a big part of it as well. It's like, whoa, I'm surprised now, or what's coming next, and that's basically giving. And I think DJs use that a lot in their sets. The DJs that you see where they can really play a room where there's like, yay, like this. They use that a lot. even making edits from certain existing tracks already, like that you wouldn't expect something to happen.
I think it's a sweet spot balance, between overexcitement and underexcitement. On the one hand, we love repetition because our whole cells, our body is a repetition of life. I mean, that's what it does. It can regenerate, it dies off, it regenerates, it dies off, and it kind of slows down. That's why we age. So there is a theory about entropy and about cell division, that the world is chaos. That's pretty much what it is. And we are trying to infer a certain structure in order to make us feel better. But if we just let go and embrace the chaos, it will be much healthier for us. It's again a different story. So it's the same with the music. On one hand, repetition can be good, and we all know from our puberty that we can spend days listening to one song on repeat because it just has this particular touching, and it happens in an old age as well. But on the other hand, we need to challenge our brains because the world is as repetitive as can be already. I mean, with social media and internet, you name it. I mean, scrolling is very repetitive. It's repetitive behavior. It's something that you kind of do. The content is not important. It's the fact that you scroll in the hope and anticipation that you will find something that you have not seen before. And the moment when you realize, hang on, I've seen this video now for 3 times, or I've seen this post for the 5th time. The educated listener or the educated reader will say, well, what am I doing? Just put the phone down. I'm going to go outside and go for a walk. Because then you kind of realize, your brain realizes, Jesus, what the heck? Am I completely daft? But unfortunately, not everybody has the luxury to actually step out of it, and then it has to do with experience and how we get information and then which generation we are from. Well, I'm from a generation we had no internet. I had to write my thesis in the library. I had to actually find books, real books, and if you tell that to students now, you what? Book what? So, I mean, it also changed. The times also have changed. And we have to move with the times. I completely agree. But never forget our heritage.
Coming back to one thing that you mentioned before about listening, why we like listening sometimes on repeat to the same either genre or a specific song, maybe it's the release of dopamine. However, it is very good for our brains, maybe, just say it if I say it wrong, to also listen to different genres. Is that true? Like,
Yes,
how would you explain that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's if you're used to one genre, your brain will know what's coming. So you're kind of slowly but surely creating this lazy paradigm of, oh, I know what it is. I don't have to put much effort into it. I can just fall asleep, whatever. It doesn't matter. So that's kind of the zombie mode that you get when you listen to something and just staring outside, which is good. It's a reset mode. Challenging your brain with different genres of music creates this extra additional trigger that will tell your brain, well, hang on, that it is music. I recognize it as such, but there is something different about it. It might be classical, it might be a drum beat rather than an electrical beat. It could be a guitar or a flute instead of a voice, whatever you kind of choose in whichever genre you choose it. And your brain will kind of it's like a full body workout. That's the best that I can describe it as, because you know how to move when you walk, but the moment you go into the gym and you start working out your whole body, you will feel it the next morning. You will just ache like hell because your body is not used to that sort of movement. The same with the brain. You will not get a headache, thankfully. That's the good thing about music. But what will happen is that all those different cells and all those different connections that you already made will be excited, and they will be kind of, well, you just seen something completely new. Let's strengthen those connections. Let's elaborate on our way that we are connected in our brain. So it is, I believe it's extremely important to challenge yourself with new music. You don't have to like it aesthetically, but just challenge yourself and just sit there and just see what you're going to recognize. And out of a sudden, you will recognize that Eminem has used Beethoven's Fifth. You will see that a lot of jazz music goes back to the Baroque era, using kind of influences from there. Most heavy metal is based on symphonies by Beethoven, Mahler, and Mozart. I mean, you see all those connections. Not speaking of electronic and pop music that are incorporating the whole development and evolution of music from the early starts of the first drum beat ever played by a primate on a piece of wood to speak to another primate across the jungle, to the latest hit that was just written last year. And that's the beauty of electronic music. You have the freedom to incorporate everything
Yeah.
and really everything. And you
Yeah.
don't have to recreate it. You can actually record it and put it in as a sample. And that's
Yeah.
the beauty also of electronic music.
Yeah. Oh, you speak beautifully. It's really nice listening to you. And this is also what I hear a lot within, I do it myself as well, but from most electronic music producers that I know, there is this stereotype thinking from their fans or people that are not into electronic music, maybe even whatever, some of my own friends or parents or whatever, that think that you like to listen to techno all the time, all day long. And I'm like, that would kill me. Oh no, please not. I use that as my way of communicating and expressing myself creatively as an artist. But what I listen to is either jazz or soul or some classical music, whatever it is that inspires me. And thank God, most of the musicians I know actually have different playlists to listen to on a daily basis. So yeah.
But I mean, that's being informed by what you do. You know, I hear that argument a lot by people who are opposed to a certain genre. So electronic music is one thing, heavy metal is yet another. You know, where people can say, "You listen to heavy metal, you're going to be aggressive and you're going to kill people." So,
Yeah.
well, I haven't so far. You know, at least not that I know of. So, but you know what it is? It's I always use the example of writing or reading books. Even if you like sci-fi, you will not only read sci-fi. Or especially if you are writing sci-fi, and Stephen King comes to mind, you know, with his book on writing, which is absolutely fantastic and phenomenal. If you're actually thinking about writing, not just writing, but creating something, you have to have a broad knowledge of what encompasses your particular field. And sci-fi, if you're a sci-fi writer, you will also read poetry. You will also read fiction and non-fiction. You know, you also read the classics because you kind of have to understand where your sci-fi falls in the context of a written genre. So if people say, well, you only listen to techno all the time, it's like, well, so you only read a particular genre all the time? Do you read at all? Do you actually educate yourself outside of what you know? Or are you kind of limiting yourself and your own cognitive processes to what you know because that's the easy way out? Because you
Exactly.
know what's going to happen. You don't have to challenge yourself. So I mean, who's the lazy person here? And you can really challenge those people on that, and they will just stop, you know, because they say, oh yeah, actually no, I'm not, you know, because I listen to different things. I like different things, and that's very cultural, I have to say. You know, I mean, the Dutch are more reserved in sharing the preferences, so to speak, even though they have a preference, but they will not share a preference that may be less appreciated or accepted by others. In the UK, it's much more open. It's like, well, you like hip hop? Yeah, sure, I like hip hop. Of course, I'm a hip hopper, you know. So I mean, and
Yeah.
it's very, very interesting to see those cultural things, even of our European continent, you know, which is
Yes,
rather.
indeed. Yeah. I want to dive into the health aspect, or what music can do, because this is, I mean, you know so much about it. Where to start? So, well, you're working on a noise canceling incubator, or I don't know if you are working on it, but you're doing the research behind it. So maybe that's something that we can speak about, but also, okay, let me start why I got intrigued by also, having a conversation with you. I think the Erasmus University in Rotterdam,
Mhm.
I'm not sure if it was that they had the research of, playing music while people are having surgery, that the healing process, or they heal faster, or I think that was one of the conclusions.
Mm,
So that really triggered me, because I also have seen photos of in normal Western hospitals where they brought in I don't know, people from certain tribe with a didgeridoo,
mm,
and they were actually helping to heal, or I don't know,
mm,
the healing
mm,
abilities. I think we need to be very careful with the
mm,
word healing, indeed, because another topic for in a bit, the sound healers of today. um, so yeah, that intrigues me a lot. So just take me a little bit into your world again. What can music do for our health?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with what the Erasmus Medical Center is doing is indeed to play music from playlists that are from your age-related playlist. You know, I mean, that's one of those things that I could criticize them on, but I mean that's a nice thing about research, and you can always have some thoughts and share thoughts, that you would do things differently. Because I don't believe that every decade of age has a particular playlist and should only be able to choose from that. I mean, it's too limited in my personal view. But what they indeed have done is actually looking into when they play music while they sedate people before an operation and after they woke up, to actually help them. Recover faster, that music can have a profound impact there. I mean, they need less medication, they kind of restore quicker. The thing is, though, they mostly use recorded music, so playlists, so you just listen to it. Nowadays, most people do it anyway because we kind of like to block ourselves out of the world around us, so there's not really a clinical approach to it, so it started off as a nice idea. Music as medicine, they're called. They started as an idea where they actually used music as a form of medicine, so as a pharmacological intervention. But music is not pharmacological. The beauty of music is it has no side effects, unless you listen to it very, very loudly, and then you will damage your hearing. But there are no side effects when it comes to the side effects that a pill would have that you would kind of administer. So the name is kind of misleading a bit when it comes to music as medicine, because it's not really medicine. It's something else. It's more than that. It actually allows people to close themselves off. But I mean, that's one strain of the research. They've done wonderful research in surgery. I mean, it's really, really interesting what their thoughts are, how they are thinking. But the fact that they have no music therapy and music specialists in the team is always a question mark. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's a question mark. I'm not saying that we do everything right. Absolutely not. But it's just a question mark. Where do you get the expertise from to actually understand what you're doing? So we worked. Well, you mentioned the noise cancelling incubator. So we are working on. I've been working in the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit. So we're talking children that are extremely preterm born. So normal gestation age would be 36. That's a normally term baby, 36 weeks. And we work with everything lower than that. So 28 weeks, 26 weeks, 24 weeks. The youngest was 22 weeks that we had, 22, 23 weeks. And then, I mean, they're as heavy as your phone. That's roughly how you can actually weigh that up. And the child is roughly the size of your phone. Depending on how big your hands are, those children fit into my hand rather comfortably. So working with those children has been extreme risk because nobody wanted to touch that population. The thing is, they're so fragile. Every tiny little change will determine the rest of their life. And from there, we kind of started to investigate the different abilities and possibilities. What can we do with music? And we very quickly noticed that we cannot play music. It's too much. It's overstimulating. So playing a whole piece of music from a CD or MP3 or whatever will overstimulate them. So it can actually cause more damage than do good. Adding insult to harm, it can be as bad as creating wrong associations in the brain, so the child cannot actually listen to certain sounds long term in the life anymore because the music was just too much and miswired the brain completely.
Yeah.
So what we started to do is kind of investigating what sounds are there in the intensive care unit. You've got the heart monitor, beep, 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 one of those. What can you do with that? Add one or two notes by a specialized music therapist who is trained to improvise with those individual tones. Beep, beep, tom, tom, beep, beep, tom, tom. You have a melody. So what you do, you use the sound of the heart monitor and two notes, just two notes. There's beep, beep, pom, pom, beep, beep, pom, pom, beep, beep. And you have the melody where the child slowly but surely is understanding that the heart monitor sound is not a sound that is natural or alien or whatever it thinks that it is, but that it can actually be incorporated, reconditioning the child to understand that the sound can be something good, which you can use once the child is discharged from the intensive care unit as a melodic intervention therapy, where you help the child to actually come back to and relive, not just relive, but actually go away from the trauma that it has having post-intensive care. Another thing is the constant 24/7 and that's the air that is pumped into the incubator and the heating element. And the child is conditioned thus far that after it's been released, at home, it cannot fall asleep until you put on the hairdryer or the Hoover, because it creates the same sound. So the brain was conditioned to this sound, and this sound is normal to the child.
Yeah.
So if it's lacking, there will be something changing in behavior. And that has kind of prone us to create a noise cancelling incubator where we're not just trying to cancel out all the bad noise, because just having 100% silence is easy. It's very easy done. But what we're doing is filtering out the bad noise and introducing good noises, because you need language and speech around you to actually develop your own language. Some music therapy or intonation therapy with the music therapist, maybe even some bird sounds, maybe the sound of the womb of the mother, the voice of the mother and the father, while they interact with the child. So this will all kind of be incorporated into this incubator. So therefore we kind of on the verge of or the verge on the line between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and medicine. So I mean, these two go in the hand in hand. But understanding what happens in a child that young translates beautifully into childhood generally, but also into teenage years, adulthood, and into old age. Because seeing what music can do, and now the sky is literally the beginning. I can't just even say and use the phrase properly, but the sky is the limit. I know you should, because that's the phrase, but it is the beginning. Because we have to change the paradigm. We have to change the way that we are looking from a certain discipline in order to understand what a new discipline can bring to medicine. And what happens is, depending on the pathology or the clinical group that you are talking about, we can have a form of music therapy or music-based therapeutic intervention or participation that will help those people in achieving a certain goal that is important for their well-being. It could be
Yes.
Parkinson's, dementia, psychiatric problems. It could be borderline. It could be
Autism, right?
Down. Autism is a
Yeah.
big one. ADHD. You name it.
Yeah.
You can put. I'm not saying we're going to heal the world, because it's impossible to heal or change somebody, but we can make somebody else's life better
Yes.
with music and actually contribute to their well-being.
Wow. Yeah, this is just the beginning, isn't it? I also have read somewhere, and I really so support this, that music therapy should be part of our basic health insurance package. I think you already, elaborated on that, but do you think there will be a future in that? Is that something that you are actually, besides all the work that you guys are doing already, is like, how are we going to make this happen? Because I'm a strong believer that music actually, can help us. Maybe not heal, but enhance at least
Trigger,
our, yes,
enhance, yeah.
exactly.
I mean, it's preaching to the converted, of course, because we believe that music has a certain strength, but music is not for everybody. We have to be clear about that as well. I mean, not every individual, not every client will prefer music. There can also be something like dance therapy. There can be something
Yeah.
like fine arts therapy where you paint. It could be maybe even play therapy that works better for you, or motor movement therapy. I mean, so it's not exclusive to music. Music has a very out of all the arts therapies, it has a very profound effect on the brain. That's very, very clear. And it triggers us so naturally that other art forms do not, for some strange reason. That's most likely evolutionary. But I think that we should kind of be open to the idea that arts therapies for health are something that are more should be more welcomed by insurance companies and society at large. And yes, we are working on this. I mean, we just wrote a white paper with multiple stakeholders in the Netherlands and internationally, and together with the World Health Organization, of more arts therapies in health, or more arts in health. Um, Negative side of this white paper is they denied 80 years of arts therapies in the field. They kind of didn't look at it, even though we told them. I mean, if you look at experts, they are already there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. But all right, whatever. We have a white paper, and it's the white paper for arts in health. So there is a change going on. How long it's going to take, I don't know. I mean, we've been the pioneers for so many years trying to convince politicians, economists, policymakers, governance bodies, and it still kind of does not settle in. I always think like the movie Inception. I don't know whether you've seen it. We keep on telling them, and we keep on going into the dreams, and we're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the unconscious, trying to convince them of what we're doing. And then we have to move out quickly before we get lost in our own unconscious. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, they think that they came up with the idea of arts and health, even though it has been there since 10,000 before Christ. In old Mesopotamia, they already had arts for health. So I mean, it's two worlds, but I'm happy that it's happening at all. So
Yeah.
there will be choice for clients in the future.
Yeah. Is that one of your dreams or next steps? Or, well, you're already doing it, but what are,
It's Collateral damage. I mean that's something that you do because I believe so strongly in the field that I'm working in. I mean, it gets me up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and allows me to go at bed at 1 o'clock at night. I love my job. It's just, that's just collateral damage. We have to fight for the right for arts therapists to be part of the medical system.
Yeah.
When it comes to dreams and hopes, I mean, I'm a humble man, I mean, every person that is helped with a form of music therapeutic intervention is a moment great, and it's a day made for me, it makes me happy and makes me continue my job, So I mean, what are the dreams? A dream would be, yes, give it to everybody that needs it, everybody who wants it, absolutely. Should we take care of our cultural sector more? Yes, we should, because it's one of the first thing that gets kind of cut off. You mentioned the pandemic in first chat. After such a pandemic, the coffers are empty, of the government. So where do you cut? Education, healthcare, and cultural sector.
Yeah.
Healthcare they can't do because they need the NHS or whatever body you are with. Education they can't as well, because a lot of parents have to teach at home and they actually know now how difficult it is to teach a child. So it's the cultural sector again. So I think we need a paradigm shift overall to understand that the arts are so much more than just a leftish hobby that kind of makes us happy, and it's something that we need to be human.
And that's why we have people like you
Oh,
tapping
I don't
it.
know that. We need you as well, I mean, we need the musicians, the DJs as equally as important as we are in our research. So we can't do the work without each other.
That's true. That's true. So I think we have similar, like we are kind of on a similar mission here, which reminds me before we have to, we have like 12 minutes. And I do want to go back to the point basically where I was really intrigued by your story with working with the little babies, basically, and how carefully they should be treated. And I think, not even just putting on a nice CD on with whatever sounds, but there are live music therapists, basically, really, they know what they're doing. Coming back to an era where we live in with social media, where people are influencers, just throwing things out there. We believe that frequencies can heal. Can they? I was thinking, should DJs or should music producers now um, 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 produce on a certain, with a certain frequency, like hertz? That's also, what some meditation practices do, like, oh, you can have the whatever brain waves activated by listening to this or that. Is there something that, is there actually proof that basically music producers can implement to make the world a better place, or should they just stick with what they know and just make people happy on dance floors? Because we also are now in an era with influencers and people that call themselves music or healers, sound healers. And that to me is a very tricky word. So coming a little bit more back to, to the here and now with, the time that we live in, what can you share about this?
I mean, the thing is, if I knew the ultimate frequency that would change the world, I'd be most likely still do what I do, but I'd be stinking rich because I could just write whatever song and just sell trillions of albums, superseding every producer in this world. So science does not give the answer to that. What we do know is that music, meditation, all our activities trigger certain brain waves because that's how the brain communicates with electrochemical signals. So you will pick up certain brain waves. If you would like to indulge me in a thought, if you really would like to make millions as a producer, you will have to write around, how many people are there on the planet at the moment, current counting? So, 8 billion something, really 9 billion by now. So you would have to write 9 billion individual songs for each and every person that is on the planet, regulated with their individual footprint of frequencies, hormonal household, and being how they are.
Wow.
There is no general frequency. There are alpha, gamma, beta waves that are there, but they're just a general indication of how we understand the way that our mind works. So no, we can't write and distract a certain frequency and then write a song and everybody will love it. Unfortunately, not yet. Maybe it's going to come with quantum computers because they can compute faster than we can. I don't know, but not yet. If we do, you'll be the first one to know because I'm most likely going to be somewhere on private island and just having the time of my life. You know, I don't know, because you're just going to be a millionaire then. But it's more about really, as a producer, don't forget the heritage. I mean, that's something that you often see in modern day producers, you know, kind of new kids on the block. They forget where they come from. They kind of forget that it's not them who have invented what they are doing right now. There have been people before you that have invented this. And same with the sound healers. Do your research, not the sound healer themselves, because they're convinced of their own knowledge, of course. You know, I mean, fair play to them. Everybody has their own right to believe what they want. But if you look at an influencer, regardless, do your research. Don't be lazy and consume. Do your research. Read up on it. See where the rabbit hole of the internet takes you. But step out of it. Go into a library. See a book about it. There has been so much written about sound healing, musical healing. You can also think about ancient tribes that have been using sound healing. The Aborigines you mentioned with the didgeridoo, which is telling a story of the life before and after of the dreamlands that is so much more the land that is real rather than where we are right now. Think of African tribes, Asian tribes. I mean, there's so much going on, even in Europe, individual families. With your nursery rhyme songs, you know, I mean, your parents may have a completely different nursery rhyme than your neighbors or my family, you know, because there's a different culture in between. So do your research. And that will allow you to see what an influencer actually tries to tell you. Is it just clickbait? Is it they will tell you whatever they need to tell you in order to get the 1 million hits, you know, and therefore actually be stinking rich on your clicks, and you have to buy extra little things in order to get the specialized training. They don't know they know maybe what they're doing, but they are not the only ones in the world that have done it.
Yeah.
And same with the sound healing. Do your research and actually be informed when you consume about what you consume and why. You just don't stuff anything into your gob as well. You don't just chop away on anything. You do your research. Oh, broccoli is healthy and I should eat that.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, do the same with what the internet
Yeah.
has to give you when it comes to influences.
Comes back to this question, can it also be dangerous? Like, let's say I book a session with somebody that calls themselves a sound healer or therapist or whatever, is like, can it actually harm us as well?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, I mean, we talk a lot about neurotypicals, and neurotypicals are people that do not have a pathology as far as we know, you know. So, I mean, you would not see that there's something wrong in the brain, you know. I see we have a normal conversation, so I don't assume that we have any problems. But imagine that you are depressed. Imagine that you have a post-traumatic stress, and that leads to depression, so PTSD and depression, and say another condition that edges towards borderlining. If you're seriously ill, and psychiatric problems and pathologies are an illness, you know, we should not fool ourselves that they are just something that do not fit into our society. There are real illnesses. And you would go to a sound healer because you think that the person can help you, and the person does not know what they're doing. They can re-trigger your trauma by saying, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to use the same sounds that you were hearing when the car crashed into you. You know, that's going to help you because that's the predisposition from the 80s, you know, 70s. We have to re-trigger the trauma to work against the trauma." Well, things have changed, thankfully, so we don't do that anymore. So using the wrong sound can re-trigger a trauma, can actually make you worse. So your brain will be re-triggered, the connections will be reactivated, and all the work that you've been doing so far by trying to taking a step back from the trauma that you've been living with will be completely brought back, and you're all again at step number one. You're not going via start, and you're going straight into prison. You know, so and that's what can happen. So I mean, I'm not saying that all of those are people that are trying to make things more complex and more difficult for you, and even try to harm you, but it's often not as well informed as it should be when it comes to human interaction, when it comes to healing, when it comes to medical interactions. And I'm not saying that everybody should study medicine or study a clinical profession. I'm just saying a conversation is one thing where we can actually talk about our problems and share our feelings, maybe even our cognitive predispositions, maybe our fears. This is human, it's important. We need that with other people. But don't claim that you're healing somebody with something if you actually have no idea what you're doing, because that can be dangerous. And have a conversation. Go to the pub and have a chat with people and say, "Well, I listened to this piece of music. It helped me. Maybe you would like to listen to it," and just offer it to somebody. But don't claim that something is something that you don't know. As scientists, we always say, we don't know. We think it has an effect. We think it might be something because we just don't know the whole picture. We just can't make this claim, and we can't make it true to anybody.
Yeah, it's all. I was looking at the synopsis of your book, Mind the Music, where you also speak about your intuition, like that we actually also, and I like the critical thinking aspect, you know, like really that's where the educational part comes, but then there's also the intuition, and that combined should be definitely both use the human aspect in this and what study shows us basically.
It's a double helix, it's like the
Yeah.
DNA. It's a double helix between research and education. So you have on the one hand your intuition where it tells you where to go, and will always inform you as a human, because we're human. Of course we have intuitions, in a certain way. But you also have to back your intuition up with what is known. And whether you believe in science or not, it's again a completely different question. Use the science that is closest to you, that can actually inform your intuition better, but challenge your intuition with sciences that are outside. Like we said, challenge your taste of music with new pieces of music, because that's what our body needs. That's what we urge. That's what we want. We want to be challenged as human beings, and not just sitting on a couch and just deteriorate with what we already know. It's boring, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically, in music terms, they should dance together, right? Our intuition, our human aspect,
Yes,
what makes us
absolutely.
human, and science, because
Absolutely.
there are more studies, and so we know more. In the end, things get. There's so much more that I want to talk about, but we have to round up. So, in short, my last question: why do we need music in our lives?
Because it's a quintessential part of our human being. That's what I truly, truly believe. We are not just machines that do language and calculations and maths. We are so much more. We are the arts. It's not called the humanities for now. I mean, it's about who we are as a human, and music helps us understand who we are and what the world around us is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Winston.
Thank you. It was a lovely conversation. Yeah. I don't know if you have 2 more minutes. Oh, we have 2 more minutes, basically.
We have 2 more minutes.
Then I squeeze in one last question that has been on my. I know from what I've read in studies that there are studies that have shown that brain waves can synchronize with live musicians and the crowd. With DJs, there's no study, I think, around it, but they think, there's a big chance that the same happens. However, there is a big difference between how we perceive live music and when we just listen to it, let's say from an MP3 or phone or whatever in the car on the radio. What's the difference between going to a concert, a band, seeing a band live, and a DJ, even though you're at the event? Can you know if there's a difference
There is a
between that as
difference.
well?
Yeah. I mean, the research that you're relating to is from the University of Zurich, where they had people in a scanner and an MRI scanner, so they're looking at the brain, and they had a live pianist playing the music while the people were lying in the scanner. And what they did, they recorded the music, and while the people were listening to it, the pianist got the feedback of how the brain reacts and change the music to kind of manipulate the brain. So that's the live condition. They've done the same research with having the music that you performed, played before, recorded, and they've seen there is no difference. Is that now a proof for live music is better than recorded music, or is that a proof of when you manipulate, knowing what your person wants to hear, you can actually create something rather nice in a live setting? However, there is a difference when you go into a live concert, because there's many more factors coming into play. So you are not just there listening to somebody performing and playing with your anticipation, because of course, whether you're DJ, a band, you see what your crowd is doing, so you're trying to play on that with that. But there's also something that is called social cohesion. You are not alone. You are with others, and the whole feeling of being there, sharing this experience, lifts you to another level. Then there's yet another level. Say that you use any psychedelic substances. It will open up your mind, maybe narrow it even, depending on what you use and how you use it, to actually experience it completely differently. So there's multiple factors that's coming into play. And during a live concert, you actually feel the vibrations in your body as well. And whether it's electronic, whether it's jazz or a classical concert, the basic of music is it's sound waves, frequencies traveling through air, and they hit the body, and they actually make what we understand as music. And in a live concert, you actually feel the bass in your stomach,
Yeah.
or you feel the concert while they're playing cellos. You feel them in your guts. You can feel the vibrations. So it is more of an experience rather than active attentional listening at home. So there are differences, and you can use those differences in multiple ways, whether you are a live music performer or whether you are a music therapist or a scientist.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My
Really
pleasure.
appreciate your time and your beautiful answers. It's amazing to listen to you and all the knowledge that you carry within you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Happy to share.